Ryan Leslie is up next. He is the CEO and co-founder of Disruptive Multimedia. He's a Grammy-nominated recording artist, multi-platinum producer, and avid technologist. In addition to logging studio time with Madonna, Jay-Z, Kanye West, and Beyonce, he launched the first internet pop star, Cassie. She sold over 650,000 albums, fueled by an aggressive pre-Twitter social media campaign on MySpace. Please welcome Ryan Leslie.
Thank you. 1, 2, 1, 2. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? Good. I feel like I turn my mic up now. Good. So yeah, my name is Ryan Leslie. It's great to be here. I actually just drove down from New York City, where at 8:30 this morning I was ringing the bell for an IPO for Twilio, which is a platform, actually an awesome platform on which my company is built. The name of my company is Superphone. And the idea behind Superphone is very, very simple. What if you actually had a phone number on every single social follower, right? So everyone that follows you on Instagram, everyone you're connected to on LinkedIn, every single person that you were friends with on Facebook, what if you actually had a phone number for those people? What if you were actually communicating for real, not just following, right? How much would it actually change your life? How much would it actually change your business? How much would it actually change your fundraising strategy? How much would it change the conversations that you're having? Man, I started in 2013, and I really felt like I had it made, right? So if you look at my socials, I have 550,000 followers on Twitter, 244,000 followers on Instagram, 450,000 likes on Facebook, 180,000 subscribers on YouTube, over 66 million views. And I was making good money, so I made some money. I sold some records. I was producing for all kinds of amazing artists, some of which she named before. But I felt disconnected for some reason from all that following. And then I started to really look at kind of the landscape of social. And I thought, like, well, what's the end game of this? Is it to get to 35 million followers on Twitter? Is that really what the end game is? To be on the forefront of the American consciousness enough that I was like, Oprah, 34 million? And then I started to look at Oprah's engagement. So if I look at Oprah's engagement on Twitter, 34 million followers on Twitter, and her last tweet probably averaged somewhere between, if she was really lucky, maybe 4,000 likes. So she has 4,000 likes on 34 million followers. What happened to the other 33 million? Oh, you guys can do the math, right? So I said, well, that probably can't actually be the end game, right? Growing a huge social following just so I can get some fraction of a percent to actually be engaged. And so I launched in 2013. I just started giving my phone number to everybody. I started with Google Voice. And the experiment that I was running was pretty simple. I wanted to personally thank every single person who had ever bought my record. So I said, look, if you've ever bought my record before, just text me the receipt and I want to thank you personally. So obviously I didn't do this with my own cell phone number. I spun up a Google Voice number. And everything was going great. I started getting receipts in, and all of a sudden, people who had bought my album went from being like these unknown entities in the world to real people. Pretty amazing things started to happen. But I guess the easiest thing that I realized was, number one, it's very hard to manually say thank you to anyone after like over 150 people. So like the first 150 was awesome. And I was like, oh, thank you guys so much. Oh, this is great. Then my hands started hurting, right? And I was like, okay, this can't be the way forward, right? So I decided, okay, cool. Well, I learned two things. One was that Google Voice is cool, but I couldn't program it to do what I wanted it to do. And I'm like, oh man, it's 2013. I should be able to program a system to do what I wanted to do. What is it that I want to know from every single person who sends me a text? Well, first I want to know, what's your name? Because I'm the same as you. If you get a text from an unknown number, first thing you want to know is, who is this? All right? Or WTF is this, right? I know. So who is this? That's number one. Then number two, I wanted to try to figure out if them texting me could actually up the chances that they would buy my album, right? So it's really beautiful when you really think about like one-on-one exchange, right? What's your name? Diane, right? So a one-on-one exchange with Diane. So maybe Diane goes to my Twitter profile, she sees my phone number, she sends me a text, hey Ryan, I'm a huge fan, and I say, who are you? And I send her to a form, so it's like the equivalent of me just handing my phone to Diane, and she can actually go in and fill her information out, right? And then when I get her email address, I can check my online store and see if she's ever bought my album. If she hasn't bought my album, my phone system will say, hey Diane, maybe you haven't heard, but I have a new album out, right? And what I was finding is like 1 out of every 2 people that I sent that link to actually bought my album. And the reason why is because it's no longer about one to many, it's one to one. So if it's one to one, even if I ask Diane right now, I have a 50% chance that she will buy my album, right? So somebody's getting sold, right? Someone's getting sold. Either I'm going to sell her a reason to get my album, or she's going to sell me a reason why she's not going to get my album, right? But it's one to one. So 1 out of every 2 people who I sent that link to bought my album. And then the last thing that I wanted to do was what I originally set out to do, which is just thank everybody personally. So 5 minutes after Diane goes and gets my album, she'll get a text from me, hey Diane, I saw you just got my album 5 minutes ago. Thank you so much. Where do you live, Diane? You live here in DC? Yeah. So, and then based on her address, I can know, hey Diane, you know what? In appreciation of you buying my album, I don't want you to miss my next concert. So I see you live in DC, so I'll make sure that you don't have to go look on Songkick or follow me on Bands in Town or troll my Instagram or Twitter or Facebook feed. I'll just text you directly whenever I'm performing again. Now I'll give you some simple math on that. My first album on Universal Records, and we won't get into my long history of music and how my circuitous pathway, but in a very, very short, condensed couple of sentences, I got into Harvard when I was 14. I started Harvard when I was 15. I graduated when I was 19. I was homeless and basically putzing around trying to get my break in music from 98 to 2003. 2003, I got signed by Puffy. From 2003 to 2005, Puffy was my manager. I produced for literally any project he was working on. Britney Spears. My first record was Beyonce for the Bad Boys 2 soundtrack, a record called Keep Giving Your Love to Me. You don't have to look it up, but it was an awesome record, especially for me. It's my first big placement, right? And then in 2005, I realized that the internet was just going to change literally everything. Now, it took me a second. I was hard-headed because one of my, resident assistants at Harvard basically told me, like, yo, Ryan, if I have any investment advice at all for you, my advice for you is to short any publicly traded record company. Why? Because the internet is going to completely disrupt the way that music is distributed and the way that artists are discovered. And so in 2005, after 2 years with Puff, me and my homeboy, Rashid Richmond, we launched what she talked about, a pre-Twitter social media campaign on MySpace. We took an artist from 0 to 650,000 friends over 3 months because we actually controlled the MySpace keyword. How do you control the MySpace keyword? Search engine optimization, search engine marketing. Anyone who typed in MySpace, the #1 search result was myspace.com. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on page 1 of Google, they were ours, right? So Cassie's MySpace profile was first page of Google, 0 to 650,000 friends, 650,000 albums sold, the first time in music history, probably the only time in music history that someone sold as many albums as they have social media followers. And then all of a sudden, the platform changed. All the equity, all the bulletins, all the videos, all the updates, all the photos, everything that we had done to grow from 0 to 650,000, all of the search engine marketing, all the search engine optimization, all of a sudden disappeared. And I thought to myself, wow, I mean, wouldn't it have been way better if she just had 650,000 cell phone numbers? She could just text everyone when she has a new project. So I released 2 records. One was on Universal, 2 were on Universal Records. The first one, 180,000 albums sold. The second one, only 60,000. And once again, I ran into the same issue, which was, okay, #1, we're making less money in the music business, but #2, why is it that I'm only selling 1 in 3 albums when my second album was nominated for a Grammy, arguably better music? Why isn't the music connecting So I went to my record label. I said, hey, well, how come we actually haven't just like emailed everyone who bought the first album? It is 2010, for God's sakes. And they said, well, we don't have an email address on everybody. And that's when I started this crusade. Now, the math of this is pretty incredible. On 180,000 albums sold, which is about maybe $7 a record, something like that, I still didn't recoup because it cost my record company like $1.5 million to even reach the number of people to actually move 180,000 copies. But when I started my text campaign, it only took me about 15,000 people to do $2 million in revenue over text. So I'll tell you the math on it. About 33,000 people texted me. About 9 of every 10 entered their information when I sent them back a link, say, hey, can you put your info on my phone? 9 out of 10 people. And 1 out of every 2 of those 9 out of 10 people, 4.5 people, but it's like 4 or 5, depending on the day, right? Actually bought my record. So I sold 15,000 albums at $12 an album. And then when I had my concert, people don't go to concerts alone, so they all brought someone. So we sold 40,000 tickets at 40 euros a ticket. That's $1.6 million. All no label, no manager, straight off the iPhone. Crazy. So the idea really, and I only got about 2 minutes left, we'll open up if you guys have any questions. Does anyone have any questions about this at all? No? Okay, cool. It seems like I can just keep, what? Somebody does have a question? No? Does anyone? Okay, good. So I'll just keep going all the way till my timer runs out. Go all the way to the buzzer here. So the idea initially was just, okay, I just want a cell phone number on all my fans. But what started to really, really change the way that I operated was everyone who uses messaging, whether it's WhatsApp, WeChat, Line, Kik, Facebook Messenger, iMessage, SMS, no one has any intelligence on their messaging. So right now, I'll give you guys my cell phone number if you want it, actually. It's 646-887-649, well, 646-887-6998. 6998. 646-887-6998. Feel free to text me. And also, it's on my socials. So Instagram.com/Ryan Leslie, Twitter @Ryan Leslie, but my number's on there. You might find different numbers on there, and if you do text me and you get a different text back, then that means it's a better number for you because I want you to have a more personal number. But what I realize is that we actually don't, from day to day, we don't understand the actual power that's sitting in our phone books already. People that you've met, people that you meet here at MCon, people who you exchange business cards with, I guarantee if you collected 150 business cards, only a small number is going to end up in your contacts anyway. And then how many of those people will you actually follow up with? How many of those people will you ever be in a room with again, unless you actually do the work to do it? And so now what Superphone really does is it gives me a relationship index, not just for my fans, but also for my mom. How long does it take for me to respond when my mom texts me? How long does it take for me to respond when she calls, right? How long does it take for me to actually, how long does it normally go between phone calls and text messages? And I can set a timer as well and say, look, for my mom, if it goes more than 3 days and we haven't exchanged a phone call or a text message, just send her a message, say, hey mom, it's been a couple of days, is everything cool? She always responds, right? But it's really, really interesting. Like email, we have all of these sort of organizational tools, right? But email, for whatever reason, at least for me, people take a long time to respond to email. I mean, we actually, if I'm looking at email on my mobile device, even though it's the same mobile device that I'm using for text messaging or Snapchat, I just psychologically approach it differently. And so messaging, I believe, and one of my friends who's an investor in my company and also the chief e-commerce and mobile officer for Mondelez, which is the biggest snack company in the world, like Oreos or Sour Patch Kids, right? He really sat down with me and said, Ryan, the reason I'm investing in Superphone is because I believe that messaging will be the dominant way that humans communicate in the future, right? Some people don't even like to get on the phone anymore. Oh, just text me, right? So if you called me, people say, well, what happens if people call you? Well, you get a voicemail that says, hey, don't leave me a message, just text me, all right? It's true. It's true. But in any case, I guess my numbers now are that I have about 53,000 conversations that I'm actively managing. Science says that we can only manage 150 conversations. Our human capacity, our human brain can only manage 150 conversations at a time. I'm managing 53,000. Now, I don't have a personal, stable relationship with all of them, but I am managing 53,000 conversations, and feel free to test it out. Honestly, if you're persistent, because when I first gave my number out, yeah, I got tens of thousands and thousands of numbers, but now it's like, you know, if Jay-Z gave you his number tomorrow, unless you're totally out of your mind, you're not gonna text him every day, right? You might text him once, like, yo, that song is hot. Or if you see something that he's doing in the news, or if you hear a new single, you see a new video, you want to ask him what's going on really with the Lemonade story with Beyonce. Maybe you would text him, but it's not every day. So when you're actually thinking about the heat or the index of a relationship, no matter what you're trying to do, if you're trying to change your life, if you decide that tomorrow I wake up and I decide I want to be a Buddhist monk, I can literally look at my relationship index and say, who did I talk to last week? If I wasn't talking to people who could make me into a Buddhist monk, then probably I don't really want to be a Buddhist monk. Or if I want to have more connections in the investment community, and I look and say, last week, who were my most contacted? And it was just a bunch of girls, and probably I don't want to be connected to people in the investment community. And so the idea behind Superphone is that eventually, and it doesn't have to be my platform, but eventually there will be platforms like mine. Mine just happens to be kind of early and pretty awesome because I use it all the time. But there will be platforms that start to put intelligence around your relationships. And I would say that your relationships is not just about your contacts, it's about the actual conversations that you're having. And then how often you have a conversation. So really simply, it's like, even if we exchange a text today, how weird would it be if I say, yo, what's going on with your boyfriend tomorrow? It takes a little bit of time for human beings to warm up, feel like they can trust each other, and have a relationship. And so if you can have a layer of technology, my thesis is that a layer of technology can actually help you and support the idea that we could potentially challenge the laws of science and have and maintain a stable relationship with more than 150 people at a time, and we can actually compartmentalize it. There's a saying that says, you are the aggregate of the 5 people you spend the most time with. But what if you could change those 5 people every week? Not that you want to be a new person every week, but how much more would you learn? How much more enriched would your life be? How much more awesome would the experiences be? How quicker could you close a deal? How much more easily could you raise money? I have all kinds of crazy stories about things that happen over text. I now can look in my phone and say, well, is there anyone who's texted me that works at Delta Airlines because I'm running late for a flight? Send them a text message. Hey, I'm not going to be able to check my bags, but can I gate check them? It's actually happened. They've said yes. Or I'll say, is anyone in my phone, look, oh man, I forgot my credit card. I'm in the studio super late. Does anyone on my phone work at Domino's Pizza and want to send me a pizza for free? They've done it. And not because I'm begging my fans for something, but when they realize, like, look, Ryan, I want to support you more than just a $10 album or a $1 single on iTunes. And look, this free pizza that I'm getting from Domino's that I can send to you just shows you that I actually care and appreciate you more than just that simple transactional exchange. It's pretty beautiful what can happen. So anyway, my name is Ryan Leslie. I'm super over time, but thank you guys, MCon. And if you want to continue this conversation, just text me. Thank you.